Alright, Competitive Access, Chapter 11, Railroad Accounting Principles, Volume 2. Railroad Accounting Principles, Final Report, September 1st, 1987, Volume 2, Detailed Report. Chapter 11, Competitive Access Explanation. Competitive access is commencement of the reservation for the railroad for the particular shipment with the group of the ship has more than one railroad. The purpose to increase the obtain maintain an intramodal railroad competition in competitive access. Case the Interstate Commerce Commission may require a railroad to provide with a switching service to another railroad. Reciprocal switching grants rights to the railroad to operate over the tracks of another train. A railroad track rights whether deny the road route cancellation. Railroad accounting principles address the competitive access only to the extent the Interstate Commerce Commission with the use of the cost information. In these cases, furthermore, the railroad accounting principle is limited with the examination of competitive access costing issue with the agreement cost of the competitive access. In the setting of these cases, the Interstate Commerce Commission must consider the numerous factors addition with the incremental cost, such as common adjusted for the cost for the revenue need for the granting of the railroad access need for the requesting the railroad and a ship the reciprocal switching of the track rights for the case of the Interstate Commerce Commission. Users cost for the additional data information establish the compensation level of access that has been agreed between the carriers cannot agree with the compensation and joint with the rate of the route with the cancellation count or the Interstate Commerce Commission used to determine the relative efficiency of the alternative routes. Chapter focus the cost of the reciprocal switch for the track rights case of the cost of the incremental cost associated with additional use of specifically identified facilities for the services because of the case that normally involve the well-defined subsegment of the railroad system cost exception with the direct observation of the frequently practicable in contrast with the scope of the rate joint of the rate of the cancellation main range for the cancellation of tariff containing with the single rate of the rate of the blanket cancellation tariff encompassing with hundreds of rates and routes involving the movements over the virtually entire railroad system joint and the rate of the route cancellation typically average variable with the movement of the cost of development of the government purchasing cost system subject with the movement of the specific adjustment. The government purchasing cost system is discussed in Part 3 as an appropriate disconcession with the application of the joint and the rate route with the cancellation cases if necessary here. According to one of the party avoiding double count with the inflation expense, excluding monopoly rents with the capital cost of the intern pertaining with the rate joint of the rate of the route with the cancellation cost, therefore, should be explicitly addressed with the railroad accounting principles of accounting with capital costs. In fact, precluded the railroad accounting principles in treatment of monopoly rents for the Interstate Commerce Commission rate setting manner. Application principle of the competitive case access case that all the principles potentially apply with the competitive access costs. Casualty available the criteria for the casualty principle incremental cost for the increment of the competitive the access for the cost would not have been incurred without the origin and destination switching of line haul railroad traffic that are avoidable the cost for the reciprocal switching similarly costs would not have been incurred without the movement of the trains over the joint trains of avoidable the cost of the track rights. The incremental competitive cost necessary to the floor of the compensation level, but they may be insufficient with the compensation level insufficient due to the presence for the cost of the fixed costs are not casually separable among the participation competitive access argumentative with the need to set the rates above the specific rate situation. Common fixed costs are the cost for the landlord switching railroad may incur for the activities of plant equipment of which with a line haul or the in case reciprocal switching the tenant railroad in the case of the trackage rights with the fire the benefits which would incur with the same life with regard with the competitive access granted such a fixed cost could cost the capital of the rate of the way of the land of each for example. Competitive access composition may be simply by Interstate Commerce Commission additional with each of the participation bearing incremental cost of the common fixed cost of the shared among the beneficiary compensation level that would be represented after the Interstate Commerce Commission break over the common fixed costs, which are although invariable must be covered provided where the competitive access serves the facility to survive establishing the source for the compensation level would require the allocation of the components of the common fixed cost. Allocation of the common fixed cost above the beneficiary absence for the casual relationship is not addressed with the railroad accounting principle, but they are fixed for the cost, but do not even have a competitive access and granted, but they according to the casualty principle cost only the attributed to the cost, competitive cost of the cost would not have been incurred with the requirements of the competition access. Therefore, the common fixed costs are not casualty attributed. The fact that allocation of the common cost of fixed for the address does not include the Interstate Commerce Commission, and however, they're selecting particular allocation approach with the established compensation level, the moreover the computation of the common fixed cost for the allocation used with it should be made in accordance with the principles. Cost assignment based on the district observation engineering analysis nearly preferred with the basis variable cost of the drive with the general government government purchasing costs of the system. Since the competitive access application typically pertain with the service that using it specifically identified with the facility rather than the entire railroad system, such consignment cost assignments may be particularly undertaken when the facilities are shared with the railroad. The engineering approach may be used to determine an avoidable portion of the facility-related capital cost, which can casually attributed with the joint axis. For example, the engineering formulas may be used to estimate the reduction of the rail life due to the attention of the tenant traffic of the land, the capital cost of the association, diminution of the land or track of the or part incremental cost of the trackage rights. Government purchase the cost system may be the direct observation engineering analysis, particularly whether the practical cost compensation represents the use of the interchangeable resource the same as the cost throughout the system, particularly practical and homogeneous principles. Competitive access effective at the time and the orientation clause of the casualty principle. The competitive access granted with the length of the time, consequently the length of the time period increases the less of the cost of the fixed additional one. The cost of the components that vary with the incidents with a long right competitive access. They should be included with the competitive access at the time of the period sensitive to the competitive access cost of the per-tag, particularly with pertinent with the capital cost. For example, continuing the comment with the greater plan and for the equipment capacity required for the additional competitive access traffic, additional incremental capital resulting with long-run access. Incremental capital costs may be pertinent to the short-run access. Or ETNI. The relative to ETNI determine the incremental competitive access cost that's limited to the facility activity provided by one railroad for access with another railroad. Capital cost. The capital cost component for the government with the cost for the capital principal asset valuation related expense principle. The nominal cost of capital may be either increased wide the individual rate or switching railroad in case of the reciprocal switching of the landlord railroad in case of the trackage rates. As to the valuation related expense of the asset valuation should reflect the current market value, preferably specified incremental assessment required for the consumer. The result of such asset valuation represents the opportunity for the cost of the switch to be recovered the owner with the incurred for the continued preservation. However, there should be not monopoly included in monopoly rents for the resulting owner's property prior to control of the access of the current market of the value of the property particular assets required for the access will be more or less than the value shown to the owner's books depending on the availability remains productivity capacity of the asset. Consequently, size specific and asset specific current market valuations are preferable to trended book valuations based on the railroad system wide averages. As an appropriate discount cash flow methodology preferred with determining annual capital cost with the double counting capital cost inflation for for example, see Chapter 10. The analysis supporting rejection change for the application. Although the Railroad Accounting Board has not adopted the hierarchy preferences of the approaches for the establishing casualties and believe the direct observation engineering approach with the general preferable to use with the government purchasing cost system with the competitive access application. The use of the government purchasing cost system may result in including the cost of the facility not issued by the particular case access case for the misstate the actual cost associated with the particular facilities with the asset inside. Regardless of the preference of the direct observation and engineering approach, the government purchase for the cost of the may be used the competitive access cost, the government purchasing cost of the unit for which the system was used with the absence of the detail for the cost of developing such data prevents the direct observation with the engineering analysis practical principle. The government purchasing codes may also be applied to the resources used in access and interchangeable across the railroad system. Therefore, average cost is appropriate homogeneity principle. Several commentators stress the importance of individual specific cost actual facilities competitive access rather than relying on the government purchase costing system. The parties expressed with the concern for the use of the government purchasing cost system may be result in proper allocation of the cost not attributed with the competitive access as a solution of the problem. One of the parties suggests they are to the railroad accounting principle will pursue the cost of the cost center accounting information with the competitive access. The railroad accounting principle with the contribute the use of the cost center, but the accounting would determine what the cost of the maintaining the source for the information system would likely greatly benefit the application. Although the railroad accounting principle for the specific identification approach with the competitive access application for the railroad accounting principle for the cost of developing information must be weighed against the numerous consideration in individual cases. Some of the considerations are miles of the track involved with the number and complexity of the facilities involved with the amount of time available preparing for the cost of evidence, in particular potential benefits and loss as the result of the competitive access for the granted with the divine consistently, particularly principal level of cost detail in which each may differ with depending on the specific circumstances in the case. As described further in Part 3, the general purpose of the cost system. The general purpose in cost system is intended to mean the establishing cost relationship between the performance and accuracy of the incurrency and currency for the cost of applied with the coin for the casualty homogeneity principle used in the government general purpose and cost system. The practical means is estimating incremental competitive access of minimizing improper attribution costs of the casualty. The Railroad accounting principle believes in the participation competitive access arrangement should be less than least their incremental cost. The concept is that the avoid criteria for the casualty principle is not controversial. Commentary proposed by the Railroad accounting principle to adopt one of the treatments of common fixed cost for the first statement is compute the trackage rights for the cost within equal for the landlord's total cost minus cost the landlord would no longer inquire the result of the tenant provided by the owner operating services. Consistent with the maximum rate of the guidelines, the equipment equipment capital cost, locomotive fuel cost, and train labor cost. For the application competitive access for the treatment did not avoid the avoidable criteria of the casualty principle must be assigned to all the fixed costs if the tenant does not reflect the incremental cost of the incurred with the result of the provision access more of the individual railroad total cost of the per traffic on a unit basis is likely to be greater than the current economic cost of the shared facility when the benefit of the economically of the traffic density. The second treatment is compute the competitive access if they do not pose the greater cost of the burden on the tenant onto the landlord. The treatment then applies the full cost allocation which does not fulfill the requirement of the casualty principle for the cost assessment with the assignment of the cost amount comparatively proponent of the recommended with the common fixed cost including non-incremental capital be allocated with the railroad relatively usage. Such allocation does not represent the identification causal relations between cost and performance and activity of the service rather than they are designated to achieve the competitively balanced compensative levels. All the allocation of the cost of the causal relationship does not exist for the unavoidable competitive access cases, but the allocation represents regulatory real rate making selection of particular allocation that depends on the policy objective of the regulatory policy objective may include the achieving the fairness among the joint users, sustaining the carrier's ability to adequately revenue maintain the cost of the parity of the competitors, encourage the economic efficiency selection and allocation method aided with the little, if at all, the strictly economically cost perspective. The Railroad Accounting Principle Board determined the selection of the best left on the interstate commerce, and since they are involved in the application of regulatory policy. Railroad Accounting Principle has included the incremental cost of the full casualty requirement to determine the economical accurate with the competitive access cost. All right, and entity. Numerous parties have commented on the Railroad Accounting Principal Board, but the proposed treatment within any competitive access several commented with the relevant entity of the competitive access should be restricted with the facility activities used for the competitive access, suggested with the cost of the facility activities not using this competitive access were relevant to their conclusion, but the analysts provided by the opportunities include the portion of the economic rate that revisable only with the because one railroad controls the access. Another computer stated that the entity should not be restricted with the facility's activity directly with the competitive access because of the interstate commerce could have considerably economic effects of the granting access to the specific compensation for the commander state, but for example, the parting access should be in the barrier of the portion of support of the faculties cost necessary for the facility, which access is sought even the support facilities are located elsewhere, have the equipment address the compensation to be paid in costs. In any case, the Railroad Accounting Principle defines the with the consistent casualty principle that should be captured the cost for the incremental provided by the capital of the assessment and provides believe the consideration of additional factors decide with the grant and deny of the competitive access request for the establishing competitive access compensation levels as a matter of Interstate Commerce Commission. Capital cost, avoiding with certain cost components, particularly the capital capacity-related capital cost, depending on the length of the time with which access is granted. The length of the time the access increases, more cost, the more become more variable. The cost of the capacity of the capacity-related cost of the capacity-related assets tend to be fixed in the short run, but are variable in the long run. Capital computations require the determination for the cost of capital evaluation necessity used for the application of capital clear couple of methods of Railroad Accounting Principle Board to determine the nominal cost of the capital appropriate with the competitive access cost of the cost of the capital principle provided with the nominal cost of the capital because of the use of practical estimation problems used associated with the computer and real cost of the capital rate. Alternative competitive access within evaluation considered by the Railroad Accounting Principle Board with the historic current market The Railroad Accounting Principal Board believed that the capital cost of the relevant current market value should be used with the competitive access cost of the competitive market return of the current market value represented with the opportunity of the incremental assessment and the relevant economic cost of the future movement involving the assets permitted to any other competitive market return of the current market of the assets encourage the owner to continue providing the incremental assessments of the competitive access service. The current market values may be more or less than the values shown on the owner's books. For example, the wind of the property be lightly or where it may be redundant as a result of the merger of the current market values will be less than the book values than urban areas. The converse of them may are true. Even though the estimation of the current market value is a bit more burdensome than the use of the historical assets, determining the current value of the increment assessed of the typical should be problem and likely revenue adequacy application with the revaluation of the entire railroad asset base. The incremental assessment of the particular competitive asset typical to represent a small portion of the railroad total assets. On the other hand, the specific identification current valuation of the assets is the impractical particular case for the extensive track rights, but includes the integral merger case, and such evaluation technique for the standard accounting cost. Standalone cost estimation may be required, but the techniques may include the engineering estimate with the railroad system-wide application trended with the net original costs. And the addressing the question whether the national individual railroad cost of the capital of the railroad accounting principle prevents performance of the railroad cost suggests the cost appropriate of the capital rate with the switching road, but in case of the reciprocal switching case of the land road, Lord road, in case of the trackage rate should be rather the national capital rate. However, recognized previously where the individual railroad cost of the capital is practicable to compute the national rail, maybe use the railroad accounting principle to decide whether the individual railroad nationally determine what the cost of the capital rates are acceptable. And considering the discount cash flow, the utility capital recovery methods of the Railroad Accounting Principal Board concluded the application of current nominal capital rate and current market value and base encourages the use of a discount cash flow capital recovery method. As discussed with the preceding chapter of the maximum rate. The discount cash flow method enables the initial cost to be set such an index and subsequently recovering the inflation twice. The utility method, on the other hand, requires separating capital costs of the other operating expense to avoid indexing capital costs, thereby recovering inflation twice. In addition, with the result of the front loading of the capital charge with regard to the capital recovery method used for the double counting with the capital cost must be avoided. Effects of implementation. The Interstate Commerce Commission not to establish general rule of determination for reciprocal twin charge of the trackage rights compensation with the parts of the cannot agree with among an amount of the Interstate Commerce Commission policies establishing the compensation with the articulate with the case-to-case basis. Therefore, at the bill light of the railroad accounting principle, therefore, these access areas to access the exchange of the Interstate Commerce Commission with the establish a new rule for the changing existing rule. The Interstate Commerce Commission prescribed the rules of commuting the route reciprocal switching costs more over the unlike of the rights, but the Interstate Commerce Commission prescribed the reciprocal switching in the case of the recent years. In past cases, the maximum responsible switching charges the Interstate Commerce Commission relied on terminals of cost developing cost form of the term as the terminal form F. The form is developed to cost the various types of switching performed at the particular terminal. Alright, terminal form F is the full cost allocation form rather than measured by the incremental cost. Although the procedure actual terminal specific operation statistics depends on the comfort of the railroad accounting principal board, the preference of site-specific movement with the specific cost of the railroad average cost is allocated to the most expensive cross-switching services based on the factors on such feet. Traffic switching minutes, but the allocation are not based on the basis of casual relationship. Therefore, are not addressed with the railroad accounting principle. While the needs for allocation meet with the Interstate Commerce Commission requirements, but the rate setting these allocations are not issued with respect to the economical accurate costs. As the case for the reciprocal switching, no general Interstate Commerce Commission rules regard the trackage rights and compensation. However, the application of the railroad accounting principles may be compared with the Interstate Commerce Commission practices for the past trackage rights compensation cases where the Interstate Commerce Commission has used such factors. Variable costs incurred by the landlord as a result of tenant's operation, tenant's share of on-car mile percentage use of the basis for maintenance and operation expenses, and tenant shares the uses basis on an interest of the rent with a component representing the return on the road property investment. First two factors encompassing incremental cost in accordance with the railroad accounting principle. The third factor focuses on the issue other than determining economical accurate cost. The first factor clearly conforms to the application of the casualty principle. Variable costs incurred by the landlord as a result of the tenant operation representing incremental cost of the track rights. The second factor conforms to the casualty principle. The assumption based on the tenant share of the maintenance for the operation expense based on the percentage of the use of the approximate increment of the maintenance and operation of the use of the use for the supported on the case-to-case basis. The third factor represents the blending incremental cost of the rating systems. For example, the portion of the railroad property investment that may represent the retention of the capacity could be liquidated and the tenant traffic did not move. The portion of the capital cost is incremented and should be assigned entirely to the tenant. However, a portion of the total road property investment is likely to be fixed, such as its return for the right-of-way of the land grading, usually based on the allocation of the total current market value of the road property and fixed with the cost of the items, reflecting the Interstate Commerce Commission's desire to place the tenant precisely of the portion of the owning the road. Allocation of the fixed cost of that between the parties must be made by the basis on which the ever policy objectives are sought by the Interstate Commerce Commission, not on the basis of the casualty. All right, your Interstate Commerce Commission rejection of replacement valuation, historic valuation approach of the favor of the current of the market valuation conform to the asset valuation related to the expense principle. However, the railroad accounting principle will not recommend the adoption of the Interstate Commerce capitalized earnings approach for any other current market value methodology. In addition, the two other components of the interest rental methodology, except for the interstate commerce, are different from the railroad accounting principle or capital cost of the capital principle. The incorporation of the effect of the tax rate deferred with the railroad accounting principle with the directive recognizes the cash flow of the effects of the deferred tax of the discount cash flow methodology. Also, the use of the historic book of the return on the investment for the landlords R1 at the rate of the return of the cost of the capital rate deferred the railroad accounting principle approach with which it adopts the current marketplace for the capital cost, the capital rate. Well, the discussion has the point of the focus on the line haul track rates and other and seldom used the form of the track rates for the terminal track rates and the terminal trackage rights, as the name implies, are described by the alternative reciprocal switching with the competitive access as desired. According to the statute governing the terminal track of the rights, the Interstate Commerce Commission will establish to compensate under the principle controlling compensation condemnation proceeding in the past of the Interstate Commerce Commission and is interpreted with the statutory language meet the terminal trackage of the right cost of the other than maintenance for the operation cost must be assigned with a numerical basis on the basic equal shares among the user regardless of the level of usage. However, the cost calculated with using the equal shares methods is not equal cost. Therefore, the conflicting with the casualty principle and railroad accounting principle, economically accurately non-maintenance and non-operating costs of the terminal trackage rights should be assigned in the same manner as the line haul trackage rights. Incremental portions of their costs are assigned on the basis of the casualty for determining both terminal line haul trackage rights. Cost fixed portions of such costs are not assigned in the basis casualty. Their assignment in the Interstate Commerce Commission rate setting manner. Chapter 3, Abandonment and Surcharge.